I used to start these videos with an analogy like, Fallout 2 is like an old girlfriend you haven't seen in years. But I don't know anything about Fallout 2 anymore. It's not the game I remember, and it's gotten fatter over the years. And the game no longer functions the way I thought it did. Like I used to think that Fallout 2 could put its feet behind its head, but that functionality got patched out when it gained about 200 pounds. I've been streaming this game and I can no longer tell if my memories of it were fevered dreams or if they really did happen. It appears that someone thought my memories were bugs that needed fixing. Take sneaking into the vault in Vault City, for example. There was a time when you could do that, but someone realized you could start combat and just walk right in. This is an obvious exploit, so someone thought an appropriate fix would be to make that this area is inaccessible unless you're a citizen. Well, fuck me sideways, that fixed it alright, but what about sneak? Did that degrade the usefulness of that skill at all?
Oh, they fucking fixed the error? Is that what they did? They fixed the error! That's some bullshit! Oh my god, that's some horseshit. Dude, like, okay, so here, I wanna point out that I can't even sneak in there.
Me thinks it did, but the fucked up thing is, I don't even remember if it was even possible to sneak past the guards. I'm sure I did it in the past, but now? Who the fuck knows? And honestly, I feel bad for complaining. I mean, without the patch, the game wouldn't even likely work. So that's like biting the hand that feeds you, but man, when I was on stream trying to sneak into the vault, I was definitely a rabid dog looking for a hand to bite. I also remember being able to steal a lot more shit off the shelves.
I think you can steal from this guy like this. And no, you cannot. Alright.
But even though I don't see that particular note in the patch, I could have sworn I could. I remember stealing metal armor from this fucking guy off his shelf, but when you look on his shelves, there's nothing but cobwebs and pocket lint. I guess this is one of those little mysteries that we'll never solve, Scoob. Oh well. So this isn't going to be a typical how-to video on how to play Fallout 2 the strategy way. This is going to be a video about how to play Fallout 2 the way the unofficial patch allows you to play. So since I was going to be stumbling around this game in the dark, surprised by every change the game was going to throw at me, I decided to say fuck it and install the Restoration Project patch, which adds a bunch of cut content that will make Fallout 2 less like the game I remember and more like I bought an entirely new game or at least some DLC for it. So let's do this shit. Unlike with Fallout 1, I won't be showing you how to make an overpowered build that can steamroll through the content because I already did that. If you're looking for a build like that, check out my Fallout 1 video. I instead want to show you how to make an optimal build, one that will take advantage of all the free training and augmentation items that you can get over the course of gameplay. This character will be a hand-to-hand fighter that will rely somewhat on their team to stay alive because Fallout 2 made many quality of life changes to the companion system, which is to say they made it possible to keep your team alive, which is always nice. The first thing you might notice is this button. This button allows you to tell the companion to use their best weapon and armor in a way that messages to you that they're actually doing it, and unlike the vanilla game, when you patch it, the model of your companion changes to show they're actually wearing that armor. It allows you to change other factors as well, like their AI, which gives you the ability to control how aggressive they are. Personally, I recommend they be in a more defensive stance so they don't get themselves in any kind of real stupid trouble. So now onto the stats. Not much has changed from Fallout 1, so I'm only going to go over the stuff that has changed. Strength determines 3 derived stats: carry weight, melee damage, and starting hit points. It also determines how well you handle a weapon that has a minimum strength requirement. If a weapon has a 6 strength requirement to use, for each point below 6 you have in strength, you lose 20% of your accuracy. So while it doesn't prevent you from using the weapon, it does penalize you, which I think is a great way to handle that particular limitation. Most games would just lock you out of using it, but this method is much more realistic. Just because the weapon is heavy doesn't mean I can't pick the bitch up and use it. It just means I might be aiming it while I'm dragging it on the ground. The importance of carry weight has been minimized somewhat in this game because your companions, which could be numerous, can carry your shit for free. And because they can wear armor just like you, they should be able to survive near to the end of the game, or at least long enough for you to get power armor. Just like in Fallout 1, you'll get a bonus to your strength while wearing it. So if you get the advanced power armor, you'll get a +4 to your strength, and by that point, your companion's usefulness will start to suffer. But at that point, you should be able to carry your own shit. We'll be going with a 5 in strength because over the course of the game, we'll be able to raise this to 4 points with the advanced power armor, and perks and items will get you to 10. Perception affects sequence, and you'll find that with low perception, you'll also start much closer to enemies when you run into random encounters in the desert. This is really bad for our character, as most early game encounters can wipe our character in a few combat rounds, and if we start combat further away from ranged enemies, it allows us to run away if we need to. Perception also plays a much larger part in dialogue in Fallout 2. You'll need perception to be at least 6 in order to get most of the dialogue options. We'll get this up to 7 by the end of the game for some of those options that pop up later. Endurance is a tough one. On one hand, you need it for hit points, but on the other hand, if you know what you're doing, you don't need it, because you already know what to do and in what order you're supposed to do it. With a high endurance, you could do things like become the world's most amazing lover and fuck the collective desert wasteland's brains out, and eventually become Reno's most popular porn star. Unfortunately, endurance for us is pretty suboptimal since I already know how to play the game, so we're putting ours at 4 with no intention of raising it, though I might raise it later through a character editor just to show you some of the late game options you'll be missing out on, because they're pretty fucking awesome. Charisma is used for some dialogue options and mainly in determining how many followers you can have in your party. We don't need a ton of followers to make it through the game, and a 6 is all you need to not pass up on dialogue and quest options, so leave this at 6 and move on. Intelligence is important in Fallout 2 because of some of the changes made to the way leveling up skills work. In Fallout 2, your skills leveled up pretty fast, and you didn't need to start taking penalties and raising tag skills until about 135%. And after that, every percentage point raised in a tag skill costed 2 skill points, if I'm remembering correctly. In Fallout 2, you need to spend 2 skill points to raise a tag skill by 2 points once you reach 100%, so you'll need a lot more skill points per level to keep pace with the content. Intelligence is also important for dialogue options, and the lower this attribute, the less options you'll have for solving problems. So our character will start with a 7 in intelligence, and further down the road we'll make this an 8. Agility is important for a few reasons. It increases our total action points, which allows us to do things like move around on the battlefield and attack multiple times per round, and it increases our natural armor class, which prevents us from being hit with every bullet, punch, stab, and book that falls off a high shelf in the game. We'll be setting this to 9 and eventually increase this to 10 by the end of the game. Luck, like I said in a previous video, is God. And it is in Fallout 2 as well, but for hand-to-hand characters who are trying to do things the optimal way, luck is the least relevant stat. Yes, we won't be doing as many criticals, this is true, at first, but once we get the Slayer perk, every hit will be a critical, so fuck that noise. Reduce that bitch to 4 and lament your early and mid-game crits in exchange for those long game gains. For traits, I picked small frame and one-hander. Small frame will help us get our agility to 9, one-hander will give us a 40% penalty to hit with two-handed weapons, and a 20% bonus to hit with one-handed weapons. Since we'll only be using one-handed weapons for our unarmed attacks, this is useful, but unarmed attacks like hammer punch are unaffected, according to the wiki. We're taking this because unarmed is difficult to get up to a level that allows us to get that much coveted 95% hit chance. This will give us a great advantage early on with both melee weapons, which we'll be using through most of the early game, and unarmed weapons. I know a lot of you are probably getting cold sweats just hearing that I didn't take gifted, but that's because we want our starting skills to be as high as possible. Here's the thing, small frame can easily be traded out for gifted if you don't mind your starting skills being low. But you should mind that because this how-to video assumes that you have the highest skill rating you can have in many different skills, from lockpicking, unarmed, to doctor, and repair. So only take gifted if you mind grinding out XP a little more than normal to get those skills up. A 10% penalty to all skills is pretty fucking harsh, my dudes, and I like to avoid it whenever the build allows it. We'll be tagging 3 seemingly unrelated skills: melee weapons, lockpicking, and speech. Speech is important because we don't want to fail missions because we didn't pass a speech check. That shit's annoying. Lockpicking is important because it seems that every lock in this game requires at least a 70% roll to open, even the early ones. So the higher this shit is, the better. Also, you could jam a lock if you attempt to pick it multiple times, so it would be nice if we could succeed more at this type of thing since we'll be picking a lot of locks in this game. We tagged melee weapons because unarmed can be raised to 90%, sometimes even 100% without much effort through finding the right people to train you in it. So we shouldn't be raising it or even using this skill in the early game because we don't want to spend too many points on skills that we can raise for free. We're only taking unarmed for the mid-game options like boxing in New Reno and fighting Bruce Lee in San Francisco. We start our journey with my character Roland in the tribal village of Arroyo. The Temple of Doom is the game's tutorial. You're told by the wizened old bitch with the milky white eye that you need to take care of an infestation problem here, and then beat up a poor innocent villager at the end. And normally this guy's no joke, because if you invest in guns like most people do when they play this game, you'll probably have a tough time with this guy. But because Roland's a big old badass, we take him down in 3 hits and send him back to the entrance of the cave to lick his wounds. This section's clearly meant for new players, as it's one of the most linear sections in the game, and roadblocks are set up in your path with the express purpose to teach you some of the systems. For instance, there's a door that you need to pick the lock on, another door that you need to use explosives on to blow up, and beyond that, an entire section where traps are set up that keep you spamming the shortcut key for some of that sweet disarm EXP. It's a decent and short enough series of events that it doesn't get on your nerves, like other certain Fallout games that don't know when to leave you the fuck alone and let you play.
21-6. I am Alpha and Omega. The beginning and the end.
A good strategy here is to hit enemies once with your melee weapon and then run away. If you have a 9 in agility like you should be able to do this pretty reliably. And because all the critters in this area can only move 2 grid squares before they are unable to counterattack, you can hit and run without taking any damage throughout the entire section. If you explore the cave thoroughly, you'll end up with 3 healing powders. Those powders are really good early on because they do temp damage to your perception, but stim packs in Fallout 2 are crazy expensive. What? So we need the healing items. But we'll also have ways around the money problem later. When you get to the final chamber in the Temple of Trials, you'll see Cameron guarding a door. He says we have to fight him in order to proceed. And you could do that. If you'll agree to fight him, you'll be doing it unarmed, which can result in your character meeting his or her end right there. Because while he'll run away like a little bitch before you can kill him, Cameron sure as shit is gonna try and kill you. Instead, steal the key to the door from him, or you could risk a speech check and say, like, fighting is like pointless, man. Like, what are we, barbarians? Let's just shake hands until everyone we beat each other up, okay? If you've tagged speech like you should, you will have bypassed your first semi-difficult fight and saved yourself a headache and long-term brain damage. On a side note, seriously, there's always that one sage-like dude in every boxing gym that I've ever been a member of. He'll try to talk to you, but the slurred speech make it sound like he's speaking a different language entirely. But, like Yoda, if you can make out what he's saying, you'll become a boxing glove Jedi.
He's too old. Tits are too big.
Just saying.
I have a strong headache when I go to sleep and wake up.
Dane damage is no Waffen Mabber. Before you leave the temple, make sure you grab your shit from the chest at the entrance of your little battle arena so you don't end up like me having to go back and get it. Now we level up. Let's get our lockpicking skills to 55% and speech to around 60, and our melee weapons need to get raised slightly to 74%. Then invest in whatever you have left over into science, repair, and doctor, if you have the points to spare. And if you have anything left over, just put it in whatever makes your life easier. Once you complete the mission at the end of the temple and don your vault gear, you'll likely gain a level, especially if you've been stomping on bugs the whole way through. Turn around and talk to Cameron. Ask him if he's ready for another fight, and if you stole the key, he'll say he doesn't remember your first fight. See? The guy's forgetting shit already. Now, before we do anything else, we need to train up our unarmed and melee weapon skills. First, go to Lucas over by the Stonehead statue. If your unarmed is below 55%, he'll train you up to that point. If not, you'll miss out on this training. This is why we didn't tag this skill. If you barter with him before you train, he should have a healing powder that you can trade for some scorpion tails. Train with him and then move to the tent that's to the right of the statue and talk to Jordan. Jordan will train up our melee weapons. After you've done all this, go to the well near the center of town and use your repair skill on it. You'll get 100 XP for basically doing nothing. Make sure you save first in case you get unlucky and fuck the well up worse than how you found it. Once you've done all this, go get some free money from your mom.
Oh no, you didn't!
A weird old man in a tent near the temple exit needs you to clear up his plant problem. See, there's 2 big fucking man-eaters inside his garden, and you might be thinking, sure thing, you weird old pedo. I'll go pull some weeds for some healing powder, but these plants are no joke. If you didn't invest in the hand-to-hand or melee weapons, you might be taking more damage than the reward is worth. So only fight these things if you know how to kill them quickly. They don't do too much damage range, and you can dart in and out of melee range to minimize their damage potential by limiting how many times they can attack. For example, in melee range, they can only attack twice in one round, but range they can only attack once and do a max of 2 HP damage. None of this matters, however, if it takes you forever to kill them, and you take a ton of damage anyway. You'll likely be low HP, but whatever you do, don't use your healing items. Run over to the old man's Jack Shack and have him heal you up for free. You can do this as many times as you want, as long as you don't say anything stupid to him, like tell him a joke. Here's a good one. An altar boy is asked to sit in the confessional booth because the priest had to take a shit and can't hold it in. The priest gives the boy a list of sins and their atonements, and runs off, clenching his sphincter shut. The first person that comes into the booth is a woman confessing to having anal sex with her next door neighbor. The boy looks at his list, and he can't find that sin listed. He runs out, panicked, to find another altar boy and asks, "Hey, what does Father usually give you for anal sex?" And the boy answers, "Usually cookies and ice cream." Okunin does not find this as hilarious as I do. Don't tell him this joke. The old man gives us some healing powder for clearing up his plant problem and tells us that if we can find some flowers for him, he'll make us more for free. You want to do this. The next mission we want to do is for our cousin who's lost his little doggy. The exit grid to the top left of the screen is where you can find the dog. You'll also find a bunch of silver geckos, and fuck these little mean bastards. If you can, try to sneak past them while picking up as many flowers as you can. Only some of them are hostile. If you're unable to sneak past them, then try to keep your distance by attacking once, then running off. Hit and run tactics can get you through entire fights without taking damage, but with enemies with high AP, it at least keeps them from hitting you 2 or 3 times in one round, thus decreasing their overall damage potential. Also, it makes you feel like you're the Flash, darting in and out of melee combat, decking people in the jaw before they can get a shot off. The dog can be found in the northwest. Just grab him up and sneak your way back and head to your cousin for a nice XP bonus. The last thing you can do here is get yourself a sharpening rock from your aunt. There's a couple ways to do this. You can steal it from her, and if you don't succeed, she tells you to piss off. Sorry ma'am, just trying to survive long enough so I can save your little shithole village. Honestly, I hope she dies first. If you try to steal it a second time, she just gives it to you for free. If you tag speech and you saved your game, go talk to the guy at the bridge, and if your perception is a 6, you'll notice his spear looks different from everyone else. Ask him why. Once you've spoken to him, go back to your aunt and try to sweet talk it out of her. If that doesn't work, trade her a scorpion tail for the flint. Before you leave, make sure you pick up the shovel near her tent. We'll need that for later for some excavations. Once you have the rock, go back to the guy at the bridge and have him make you a nice starting weapon that'll get you through most of the early game. Before you leave the village, make sure you've looted every single item you can in town and barter with whomever will trade with you, and by the time you're ready to go, you should have amassed a ton of healing powders. I ended up leaving with about 10. Now, we can head to Klamath, or we can... First off, I want to ask you a question. Do you like challenging games? Do you like progressing through a game at a normal pace? Seeing the game from all aspects that the designers meant you to? If so, skip this section by clicking the time codes in the description, because you don't want to see what I'm about to show you next. Because even seeing this trick will be temptation to try it on your own. And if you came here looking for a guide to a game that's been kicking your ass, but you still want to enjoy it, don't fucking watch this. I'm warning you. If on the other hand you want to lift Fallout 2 over your head and snap this game over your knee like Doomsday did to Batman, then let me show you how to get the advanced power armor right after leaving Arroyo. I know what many of you may be saying, dude, these random encounters down south are one-hit kills. Yes they are, but we're going to take advantage of the Start Combat exploit. I mean, alright, I'm not really sure it's an exploit. Now let me explain what happens. When you enter into a fight, whoever engages combat first gets to move first. So if you're the first person to start combat, then you're the first one who gets to move. On random encounters, there's a bit of lag between when you load into an area and combat starts. So if you spam the A key when the area loads, you could enter combat first because the enemy hasn't technically seen you yet. If you enter stealth while in combat, you can then run away and keep spamming the A key after each round until you reach the exit grid. Developers meant for you to be able to do this, but maybe not on random encounters. So maybe it's an exploit, maybe it isn't. All I know is this technique allows you to get the power armor from level 1. Create a character and tag 3 skills: sneak, energy weapons, and whatever else you want to tag. A high sneak will help you sneak away from fights, and energy weapons, you're going to just tag that because you won't just be getting power armor, but you're also going to be getting a plasma rifle, so you'll want to be able to use it. Head directly south from Arroyo, and whenever you run into a random encounter, start spamming the A key. After you spend all your AP, combat will end, so spam the A key again and do it all over again. Do this until you've made it to the exit grid, and repeat this process for every fight until you get to San Francisco in the south. Just follow the shoreline down. Talk to the Brotherhood of Steel rep standing outside the offices and take the job to steal the vertibird plans. This will add the Navarro base to your map. Head straight there using the glitch I showed you to escape all the nasty shit that can one-shot you, and saving periodically, as it seems this glitch fucks up now and then and boots you out of stealth. This is no doubt the work of this insidious patch that this game comes with. Or maybe it's a feature. No matter. Keep trying and you'll eventually get to the base. There's this prick in a purple robe that's going to try and get rid of you, and if you have a fairly high luck in any points in hand-to-hand, you should be able to kill him. If he doesn't get lucky and land a crit, that is. Kill him and head down the stairs. Here's the tricky part. Get yourself right against the door and go stealth. Open the door and start combat. Cross this hall where the guard is watching and open the door directly across the hall. Combat will end and you'll need to spam that A key to enter combat again and avoid alerting the base. Enter the door and get your power armor. Repeat this process to leave and head to Klamath, and they'll never know you were there. Oh, and you're welcome. Klamath is likely the first town you'll run across, and it's best to stay here for a while and do every mission that's available. Unlike with Fallout 1, Fallout 2 has an overabundance of stuff to do in each location, and the game's difficulty ramps with it. If you're going to places that the game wants you to go, you'll never be in an overly dangerous situation, though sometimes you may run across a random encounter that might wipe your whole team. That's to be expected, honestly. There's some free upgrades we absolutely need to get before we move on to any missions here. First, head to the building to your immediate south. Inside, there's a guns and ammo book that will increase your small arms skill. Then head over to the Golden Gecko bar and talk to the bald-headed dude in the combat armor. Use the magic dialogue for a free beer and a bit of fun dialogue, then have him train you. He'll increase your unarmed skill and melee weapons by 10% for free. Then you need to go into every house and loot every container you can find. The first person you might have seen when you entered into town is ToRR. He might be a tribal, or he might have just been kicked in the head like a soccer ball as a young child. The Wasteland doesn't really like children, by the way. They're basically mosquitoes in this game. Oh shit! You done shot the kid, bro! What you doing?
Take the baby.
Anyway, ToRR no speak good, but he want you come with him. Protect moo-moos, kill BugMeN. He takes you to a place where he lets the Brahmin graze, and the two of you wait by a fire for the supposed BugMeN to show up. It would have been nice to see what the two of you had to talk about while you were there waiting. I imagine it went something like this. Fire, pretty. Yeah, ToRR. Fire indeed pretty. It looks like ToRR might be a little mixed up in the head, as he seems to be mistaking BugMeN for scorpions. So Roland kills the insects and notices two men standing nearby, watching him do it, while their hands hover conspicuously over their crotches, hiding their dirty deeds behind a dirt-cheap bush. Strange. Nearby is a house, and inside, Roland finds a pair of rad scorpion claws, and it looks like they've been hollowed out so that a pair of human hands can fit inside. Seems like the local jerky boys have been up to playing a little prank on a town idiot.
And they always would abuse me and throw me down and rub sand on my assy nipples.
Roland decides he doesn't want to get involved, but you can. If you take the twins up on their offer to rustle cattle before you kill the scorpions, the quest will go a little different. You'll get another quest to save ToRR from the robot in the canyon west of town, for a decent amount of EXP, and an overall minor hit to your karma. You can also betray the Duttons, but that's up to you. Next, we want to go to the Buckners and talk to Slim and do his refueling quest. Make sure you save the game first and ask him for more money, because even at 60% speech, I've seen this guy refuse to pay even 15 caps more for this job. This is a pretty straightforward quest for most characters, but since our young man is weak, frail, glass-jawed fella, we might have to employ some non-standard techniques to get past some of the dangers here, as well as recruit some help. If you've been cleaning out the inventory of everyone in town like you should have amassed enough money to get Sullick, who is the best companion in any game ever. He's a crazy tribal with a bone in his nose, looking for his sister who was taken by slavers. He uses a sledgehammer to absolutely destroy enemies, and he has a bone in his nose. Did I mention he has a bone in his nose? Now that we have our bodyguard, let's say you're walking along, trying to sneak past some silver geckos, when a golden gecko spots you from the other side of the map. Well, you don't want any part of that fucker. So what you do is go into your inventory, and if you have some dry meat, drop it on the ground. The gecko will run towards the meat and attack it, and forget all about you if you enter stealth, and put enough distance between yourself and the gecko. Run to the shack and shut the door behind you, and that'll disengage combat, because geckos don't know how to operate doors. Did I mention I fucking love this game? I didn't? Well, I do. It's my favorite. I like it more than eating bananas in front of my son to make him uncomfortable. This is actually on YouTube, by the way. Now, I can't talk about politics without getting demonetized, but you know, this bitch can eat a banana like this. This is damn near fucking porn. Pick up the wood on the floor and all the items in the shack and place the wood in a still. Head back to Slim for your reward and Bob's your uncle. The key to this quest is not killing any golden geckos and killing as few of the silver geckos as possible. We need to save them for later when we can skin them, because their skins are worth quite a few caps. And whenever you kill something in a map and then you leave that map, those bodies disappear. Slim is also a skill trainer, and he can raise your outdoorsman skill by 15% if you give him 100 caps, which you can reduce to 50 on a speech check, or for free if you have a vagina. So, in a way, Fallout 2 is a lot like real life. Guys are willing to trade anything valuable just for a sip of your bathwater. Also, yuck. The Rat God quest is the next quest you should do. It's fairly easy if you follow a couple of rules. Don't get hit, and don't get hit. You can do this by using the hit and run tactics I've repeated over and over. If you're like the average American, you need it repeated 3 times before this info is committed to memories. So there. Got it now? Good. First thing we want to do is have a chat with the local dog boy. He'll growl at us, but if we shove a piece of dry meat in his gob, he'll drop the key that we need later. Next, head southwest into Trapper Town. Now, if for some reason you fucked up the dog quest, you can get the key off this asshole in a couple of ways. First is through stealing it. If you're a woman, you could sleep with this guy, but imagine how vinegary this particular pair of unwashed balls are. Now that's a urinary tract infection waiting to happen. You could kill him, but that seems to piss people off, so shut the door and do it anyway, and if you do that, no one seems to care. I guess it's all a question of etiquette to the people of the wastes. Another option is to bring a crowbar. I've heard you could pry this door open, but I've never tried it. You can also blow the door up, but talk about a waste of explosives. Once you got the door open, use the hit and run tactics to kill the rats and loot the lockers and the remains of the old gun store. Go down the ladder and do the same hit and run tactics in the caves. Loot all the containers here, and when you get to the floor with the rat god, do aim shots to the eyes. If you land a crit to the rat's eyes, it doesn't matter how much damage you do. If it lands, he dies, no matter how much HP is left. You're welcome. Once you loot the area, lockpick the door and save your explosives if you can. If not, blow up the door and head up the ladder. You need to do this because on the other side of Trapper Town's fence is a car. Inside it, you'll find a fuel cell regulator that'll come in handy later. Also, if you put a coin in a Nuka-Cola machine, it'll fire a bottle out at you. If you dodge it, you'll get some cheap Nuka-Cola, and you can use that later to make some super stim packs. If you don't dodge it, prepare to take a fastball to the testicles. Did I mention I love this game? By now you'll be level 4 and will have finally gotten yourself to 40 hit points, which would normally be our starting value if we invested into endurance. Your melee weapons should be over 100%, lockpicking and speech well above 60, and science and repair should be over 25% and closer to 35% by now. You need to start investing in doctor as well if you have the spare points. Before you leave this place, make sure you have both pairs of rubber boots that can be found in the gun shop. You'll need these for the next mission. Next, head over to Buckner's and talk to Arden to get the quest to find her boy toy Smiley. Once you do this, the location of the toxic caves will open up. If you haven't already done this, go to the Jerky Boys slaughterhouse to the north and loot all their dry meat. And if you need more, buy some from them. It's worth it. If you want to make a decent amount of money, leave Silicon Town. The tactic here is to drop the dry meat and run as fast as you can to the end of each map. Free Smiley and head back to Klamath, and learn how to skin geckos. Talk to Smiley and he'll thank you for saving his ass. And in return, he'll teach you how to skin the golden geckos. But not just the golden ones, also the silver ones. Talk to him about the geckos and he'll raise your outdoorsman skill for 5% for free. From here it's... Head down to the area where Slim Shack is and kill every gecko and skin them. Then head back to the toxic caves and do the same. We need as much money as we can gather for the next money-making scheme we're coming up with later, as soon as we get to the den. You might be tempted to buy the combat armor at Buckner's right now, but don't. We have a much more profitable venture to invest in, and we need as much money as we can get. Instead, trade everything you can to drain the local economy of its hard currency and head off to the den. The first thing you might notice upon entering the den is all these kids. Fuck these kids. Wait, I don't mean literally, okay? I don't think the game lets you do that, and I would be disturbed if it did. Whenever you pass by one of them, they'll do this little animation. That means that they've made an attempt to steal your shit. Now, most of the time they don't succeed, but fuck that. We want our shit back, and since we can't outright ventilate these little shitheads, what we can do is steal our shit back, consequence-free. What are they gonna do? Go home and cry to their mother? Their mother's dead. And their fathers haven't seen them since they were a stain on a mattress. So yeah, if you fail a steal check on these little street urchins, don't worry, nothing happens, because as I said before, no one in Fallout 2 cares about kids. Enter into a place called Becky's and go up to the nearest craft table. Now, if you did the right thing and you cleared out Klamath of all their sweet, sweet money, you should now have about 600 caps or more to spend. If you need more money, repeat this tactic in the den until you have a healthy amount of money. Now, you may have to save scum on this, but when I did this on stream, I didn't have to, because I had plenty of money.
Bitch, you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm fucking saying? Look at that, $3,200.
You want to place a proposition bet, then a single roll bet. Either pick the 6 and 6 bet or the 1 and 1 bet. Each of these has 30 to 1 odds, and as such, pay 30 times your bet back. Bet 100 caps and repeat this until you win. Each win nets you 3,000 caps, which is more than enough to buy us everything we need. Now, using the gecko skins in your winnings, buy a pair of combat armor for yourself and Sullick. And now we're ready to do some missions. Next, we want to run around and scoop up all that free experience that we can get in town. Inside Becky's gambling house is a woman named Leanna. Speak to her and you'll get a dialogue option to tell her about how your ancestor killed someone called the Master, and then she'll tell you what she knows about the Master. This is actually a great bit of lore background as it tells you where the remaining super mutants went after the Master's death, as well as the remnants of the church. When you finish her dialogue, you'll get 350 experience points, free of charge! Next, head east and through the exit grid over to a place called Mom's. Inside, you'll find a woman who tells you a horrifying story of a cat. My son recently told me a horrifying story. He told me he was researching how big the human anus was and how big it could stretch before breaking. Now, if this wasn't horrifying enough, he told me that he next read that raccoons can fit through a space as small as 3 inches. He told me that this meant that the average human can fit 2 raccoons inside their anus. I have no idea why he was searching for this info, or what he has planned, but I now sleep on my back every night. For talking to the crazy cat lady, you're awarded 200 experience points. While we're here, talk to Mom and ask her if she's got any chores for you to do. She'll ask you to go run some food over to Smitty at the junkyard west of the den's entrance. Run the food over to him and you'll get 150 EXP and 10 karma. Next, head over to Joey. He's the guy that's standing over by the exit grid, and start asking him all kinds of questions, but make sure you're polite for now, or he'll attack because he has tiny little balls and he's afraid anyone might find out. Your goal is to get as much free info about what's going on in town as you can, including some info about the church on the other side of town and the exact location of New Reno. Make sure he marks that shit on your map. So without combat or any sort of effort on our part, aside from reading, which yes, I realize can be taxing for some, we've gained 700 experience points and the goodwill of the people of the den. Now's time for the nitty gritty. There's a lady in metal armor living with a couple of boy toys just down the way from Becky's, who's got a grudge against some guy named Tyler. Apparently it has something to do with her brother, but Joey isn't quite sure. She wants us to check out this old church that a local slaver named Metzger is using as a storage facility. She wants to know what Tyler and his crew are hiding, and she's willing to pay us to find out. Accept the job and head over to the church, but save your game before talking to Tyler, because there's a chance you could fuck this mission up by not passing a speech check. If you do fuck this up, you can try the check again in an hour, so it's not all doom and gloom. Once you find out about what's inside the church, you'll get 500 EXP for getting past the guards and another 500 for examining the crates. This isn't the end of the quest, however. She needs you to do her one more favor. You need to ask Metzger for permission to fight Tyler. He'll agree because he doesn't care who guards his quote-unquote shit. So you head back to Lara once again, and she has yet another mission for her newest errand boy. We must find a weakness in their defenses. Tyler freely gives up that he and his bros are gonna go out on town and get properly shit-faced. So we head back to Lara to let her know. Now she wants us to tag along so that she can ensure we didn't sell her out. And if you downloaded the restoration project and patched the game, after that fight is over, she'll ask you to join her once again to fight Tyler and the remnants of his gang in a party in an entirely new zone that was created from Interplay's cut content called the residential area. Now, if I remember the vanilla content correctly, the fight at the church was a lot harder because Tyler and his entire gang were at the church. So you were usually outnumbered, and there was at least one guard that had an Uzi that would shred you and your companions. And that fight in general was a bitch to win. I'm not sure how I like this change, to be honest. On one hand, it makes the progression through the den's quest relatively painless, but it also strips a layer of difficulty. What do you think? Squawk about it in the comments and tell me if my amnesia is getting the better of me again. Once you finish the remnants of Tyler's gang, head back to the church and talk to Lara again. She'll give you your payment and we're off to our next exciting adventure in the wasteland. If you chat with enough people in the den, you'll find that there's a ghost haunting one of the buildings here, so if you wait around until midnight, you'll find an apparition walking back and forth, calling out for her mommy. Though she looks way too old to be calling for her mommy. I mean, if you're in your 20s and still calling your mom mommy, I gotta ask, do you still breastfeed too? If you talk to the ghost, you'll find out about a locket that she's lost. The locket was a family heirloom that her mommy gave her, and she won't stop pacing back and forth until she gets it. Normally this mission's fairly easy. You go over to Joey, pickpocket the guy, and steal the locket. At least that's how it worked in the vanilla game, but for some reason in the restoration patch, that locket isn't in his inventory, and you can't ask about it either, even after you've talked to Mom over on the east side of the den. Now, I'm not sure if this is a bug or a feature. Like, when I was playing this game, I thought I was going fucking crazy. Maybe this locket has been given to somebody else in the den just to fuck with people like me, or maybe Colin McComb once thought it would be nice to fuck with the player and have two guys with similar names in a den, with one being in a residential area and the other over by the exit grid. And because it was technically cut content, Kill App decided to restore it to its original state. Whatever the case, Me nor anyone in Twitch chat could figure out what the fuck was going on here. So I went in offline to see what the hell was going on, and here's the really stupid thing. You have to talk to the guy next door to initiate the quest. So seeing the ghost girl, talking to mom about it, and having her tell you some guy named Joel took it doesn't start the quest. The locket only materializes in Joey's pocket once you've spoken to this dickhead over here. I'm not sure if this is a feature in the vanilla game or something the restoration patch introduced, but it's really dumb. Fallout is all about breaking the sequence of missions. I mean, take the one we did for Lara. I searched the church before talking to her, and the game expected me to do that because it gave me more EXP for doing it. Once you give the ghost girl her locket, she will turn into a bag full of bones, and you'll get to see one of the thousands of pop culture references strewn throughout this game.
This house is clean.
To finish this mission, take her bones to a grave marked Anna and bury her there to finally put her spirit to rest. If you head back over to Becky's House of Sin and ask her if she has any work, she'll give you a job helping her collect various debts. In my experience, the first mission's the only one that's worth doing in her whole line because the book collection quest is a pixel hunt that I've never been able to complete because the book can show up in several different places, and it's generally a pain in the ass to do since you can't really zoom in. The collection quest, however, can be very profitable later on in the game if you do it right. Here's what you do. Fred will give you the money, but he'll ask for some of it back. Let him keep the full amount and pay his debt for him. You only lose 100 caps doing things this way because Becky will be amazed that you managed to get anything from him, and she'll split the total amount with you in half, giving you 100 of the 200 you spent. If you want it big gambling, this is a drop in the bucket. If you pay the debt for him, he'll give you 2,000 caps, 250 microfusion cells, and some other stuff in about 6 months after striking it rich gambling. If you let him keep some of his money, you only get 1,000 caps. So either way, you get roughly 10 times your investment with Fred, so it really pays to do this quest early. In a restoration project patch, you'll find an entirely new area to the south called the residential area. Here you'll find a sad, lonely kid in the house. Kill him! Do it while no one's looking! Just kidding. Where am I? Talk to him and ask him,
who is your daddy and what does he do?
From what the kid tells you, his dad is either the coolest guy who's ever lived or he's a gigolo. Either way, coolest guy ever. The kid will tell you about all the other orphans roaming the streets, and if you want those little fuckers to keep their hands out of your pockets, you should help him set up an orphanage. Mom apparently tried to set up one in an abandoned building in a residential area, but the kid couldn't tell you why it never happened. So head off to Mom and find out why. It's because there's some squatters here fucking up all her plans. The kid's dad's probably somewhere in there, fucking hoes and breathing in jet like blue velvet. Go up to the guy in the red and tell him to pick up his shit and his people and go. But when the guy tells you they got nowhere else to go, you could have them help fix up the joint for Mom, which will be the end of this mission. It'll grant you about 1,000 XP, or you could just slaughter the whole group and call it a day. The kids will just have to get used to sleeping on blood-stained mattresses. Better than living like Oliver fucking Twist. Now there's a lot more quests that you could do here, but they're all pretty optional. You could free Vic from the slavers, and you could sabotage Becky's still, or set up a business arrangement between the two bars. But like I said, the important stuff has been done, so the rest is up to you.